Okay, so welcome to the Databricks and CDR interactive session. There are two links right here on the screen that Laura will drop in the chat. That's who my message was from, though she's having some technical difficulties. So hopefully she's still able to do that. If not, I will. And then just a couple of administrative announcements before I pass things over to Tim today. This session's meant to be collaborative and interactive. We'll be utilizing the Zoom breakout rooms throughout the session, which you may or may not choose to join. A CCSQ DNA team member will be available for support in those rooms. If you have questions, please feel free to ask them verbally or use the raise hand feature in the Zoom options down at the bottom. And if you have trouble joining a breakout room, just let us know, write a message in the Zoom chat, and we can help troubleshoot with you. And then portions of this meeting, including right now, are going to be recorded and made available in the CCSQ DNA portal. I'll stop recording when we move to those breakout rooms and then pick back up at the end when we kind of do the recap. And then at the please leave feedback in the survey at the end of this session if you do have any questions, since we don't have like a true Q&A, since it is interactive. Please make sure that if you have any, lasting questions, that you add them there. And please make sure to give us feedback. Okay, so thank you so much. With that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and pass things over to Tim.
Awesome. Thank you, Julia. Hi, everyone. My name is Tim. I'm a senior data scientist here on the user services team, and welcome to our interactive session on Ggplot. So we are recording. I see the red dot. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. This screen. Now I have to move my windows where I want them. Cool. And I will send out the link to the notebook you're seeing here. Looks right. Okay. So we're going to be doing some Ggplot today. Our learning objectives are going to be to kind of recap the relationship between all these terms that we might be like interchanging, like R, Spark, Sparkly R, and Tidyverse and Ggplot. We're going to learn the general structure for a Ggplot graph in R. And then we're going to, on our own or on groups of people, build production quality, publication ready graphs using Ggplot. And we're, of course, going to be hopping between breakout rooms to help you out. Remember, the section is interactive. So if you're stuck, you're just sitting there, you don't know the first thing about Ggplot, feel free to just ask one of our team members. There's going to be one of us in every breakout room. So make sure to ask for help. But in the meantime, I have some questions for you. And to respond to these, you can use the reaction feature of Zoom, but also feel free to just kind of sound off in the chat if you'd like to. I kind of want to know where you are in your SaaS transition. Are you, fluent in Databricks? You're just no problem, comfortable in Databricks? You've been using it, but maybe struggling a little bit, or you're still super new to it. My screen is black. Let me try resharing it. Super new. No, I see that my screen is black now. I see it in the mirror. Why isn't it working? I have the green border around the window.
Try stop screen sharing for a second.
Sure.
And then when you click share screen, are you clicking entire screen or are you picking an application window?
An application window.
Make sure you're picking the right one. And then if that doesn't work, maybe try entire screen.
It is definitely the right one. And I'm even getting the green border around the window. So it's like trying to share a screen, but it is showing up as black.
Hey, Tim, you could try leaving the meeting and coming back in as well.
Okay, I'll try one more time and then I'll do that. There's a button that says optimize for video sharing. Do you think that'll break anything?
No, don't do that.
Okay, never mind. I won't do that then.
I find that causes like your options to go away. Like it's harder to see them, which is annoying. So
Oh, okay. What if I do this? What if I share it with like my face in the corner? Will that force it to work? No, I can see I'm just in a black void now. All right, that didn't work. Okay.
Blackboard.
Sounds like people are still pretty new to Databricks. Cool. I'm gonna leave and rejoin, and hopefully I'll be able to share my screen. And I'll be back in like 5 seconds.
Thanks, Tim.
I think I am having a Zoom technical difficulty. I
Is this
believe
just which screen are you trying to share? I can share and you can just.
I'm sharing the blanked out notebook.
Okay.
Maybe Dan, this is actually really great if you could do that for me. And then when it comes time to the breakout room, I have a couple more things I want to try, but it involves like killing Zoom on my computer.
Yeah. All right. Once you stop sharing. Yeah.
All right. While Dan is doing that, can you also sound off in chat how much you love R? What is your personal relationship to the R programming language? Like it, love it, gotta have it.
Oops.
This looks good, Dan.
I'm just trying to remember your note that if you think you've zoomed in enough, zoom in more.
Yeah. Okay, so while you're telling me how much you love or hate the R programming language, let's get started with this notebook. So because this is an interactive session, you're going to be cloning this notebook, working on it on your own, and then we're going to come back and rejoin and go over some exercises ourselves. So getting started with this notebook, feel free to follow those directions. If you're comfortable cloning a notebook, just go ahead and do that. The thing is, when you clone a notebook, make sure to clone it to your own personal space, because the default when you hit clone is to clone it to like MySpace. So clone the notebook so you have your own blank version that you can run, and then you should be good to go. And Dan is demoing this for me. Yeah, see the default? The default is bad idea. And then you would click for you and then click your own name. Perfect. Awesome, thank you. Okay, so let's talk about the names of the technologies we're working with. So what is R? Hopefully you're already at least a little familiar with R. R is a programming language. It is a language that is naturally single-threaded, which means that by default, out of the box, R can't do any parallel computing or any distributed computing at all. Now, Spark is a piece of software built by Apache that is a technology for working with large distributed data sets. So data sets that are so big that they have to be on more than one computer to run. Sparkly R is how R can talk to Spark in R. While R is personally not a distributed language, when you interact with Sparkly R, you can get around that limitation and work with distributed data. So the tidyverse is a group of 9 R libraries that make up kind of like the best libraries out there, the best industry standard tools for working with data frames in R. Sparkly R actually masks a lot of tidyverse libraries so that you basically can't tell which you're using when you try to use both at the same time. This would normally be a pretty bad thing, but it's actually a pretty good thing for us because Sparkly R R knows which one you should be using. So kind of like the cliff notes here are, if you're familiar with the tidyverse, you really don't need to do anything to learn Sparkly R. Sparkly R looks just like tidyverse, and it masks a lot of the functions, so you don't need to like learn a new thing, which is great. Okay, Ggplot 2, or people just say Ggplot because there is no Ggplot 1. Ggplot is one of those 9 libraries included in the tidyverse. It's used for data visualization. The GG stands for Grammar of Graphics, if you were curious. And it is, of course, the star of today's show. We're going to be using Ggplot to make some really cool graphs. So the run of the show is, I'm going to do a quick demo to get us started, or actually maybe Dan will do a quick demo to get us started. And we're going to go into breakout rooms so you can work solo in groups with the help of one of us. And then we're going to come back to the main room at the end, and I'm personally going to go through a few select problems, assuming I can get Zoom to cooperate with me. I've included the Ggplot documentation for you. And a quick final note, if you've attended our other interactive sessions, our previous interactive sessions have been in order of like attempted difficulty. So like the first one is easiest and the last one is hardest. That is actually not the case today. I've kind of separated our problems to use different data sets. So some are harder than others, with the exception of the last one. The last one is the hardest one. I decided to give you a challenge if you're more comfortable with Ggplot. All right, so let's run the first couple cells here. So we're going to get started reading in these 2 libraries that we need. Ggplot is contained in the tidyverse, so that's good to go. When we use Sparkly R, we have to make a new Spark connection. So I've just kind of set that up for us. The next cell is just a quick option to change the size and shape of the graph on your screen. To my knowledge, this is the best way to do this in the Databricks environment. So if the graph looks too big or too small on your computer, you can come back up to the cell and change these numbers if you want. And then thirdly, we're going to read in the data sets we need. I have them in our community SQL schema, so everybody should have access to this. If you don't, please let somebody know. But we're going to read in 3 data sets. We're going to read in data sets on ad spending. We're going to read in data sets on grades, like from a class. And we're going to read in data on stock price of a stock. And that's really it. You're now free to get started. And I do have an exercise that I wanted to work through with you, but you know, Zoom is kind of getting in my way here. Let me see if
I mean, I can copy paste it over.
Okay, sure. So I'll narrate.
Oops.
Oop, not that one.
Yeah.
All right. So exercise 1, we're going to use the ad spending data. I want you to make a scatter plot of ad spending versus revenue. I want the points to be your favorite color. I want you to make the points slightly smaller and slightly transparent. And I want you to have some axis labels. All graphs should have axis labels where appropriate. So to make a Ggplot, if you've never done this kind of thing before, you basically create layers and you add them on top of each other. So the first thing you say is Ggplot and then the data set that you want to use. And then you add on additional layers, and they're called geoms. They're geometries that make up shapes on the screen. So to make a scatter plot, you use geom point. And then within a geom, you create an aesthetic. That's the AES that Dan is highlighting there. And it's X comma Y, so ad spend comma revenue. Everything that goes in the aesthetic is data related. If you want an attribute that is not data related, it goes outside the aesthetic. So for example, I make the points navy blue. I make the alpha 1/2. Alpha is transparency on a scale of 0 to 1. And the size is 1. I think it's like a millimeter or something like that. So navy blue, 1/2 and 1 have nothing to do with data, so they go outside the aesthetic, but those columns that make up the X and Y axes go in the aesthetic. And then I created an X and a Y label here. That's it. Dan, can you run the cell? And there is our graph. You can see the points are a little bit transparent. It's generally a good idea to make scatter plot points slightly transparent so you can see kind of the concentration of the points. All right, you have the notebook, you have the power to clone it. You now have everything you need to get started. There are 8 total exercises. The first one's been done for you. The last one is super hard. So everything in the middle should be somewhere between those two. We're gonna have 4 breakout rooms, 3 for each data set with exercises attached, and 1 if you join late. So if you don't know what we're doing, feel free to join that one. All right, we are going to break for like 30, 35 minutes, and we'll come back with like 10-ish minutes left so that we can go over some of these as a group, and also so you have time for a survey so you can let us know how we did and what you want to hear about next time. All right. All right, welcome back. I think everybody should be back by now. I solved the problem. The problem was not solved by restarting my computer. That made everything run slower, actually. The problem was solved by turning off hardware acceleration on Zoom. So if anybody has that problem, that's how you fix it. The recording has resumed. Let's put this to the test and try to share my screen. All right, I think we have a success. I see it mirrored. Okay, so thank you all for participating. I saw it was pretty lively in group 1. I joined group 2 for a little bit. Happy to see people like powering through some of these. I should have reiterated before we started that some of these problems are like, recreate this plot. I made them super complicated on purpose. The idea wasn't for you to get them exact. The idea was for you to get them as close as you can. Ggplot, like pretty much all data visualization libraries, are easy when they're easy and prohibitively difficult when they are not. Like it's really easy to make like a scatter plot or a histogram, but it's really difficult to be like, let's make a histogram, but also change the labels on the x-axis. Like there are some really tiny things that are kind of annoying to edit. So some of my custom graphs kind of did that. Like I've been using Ggplot for a really long time, and I have to Google most of these things. So I've chosen, and I apologize for the people who just saw me do this. I have chosen exercise 5 to go over, just because I think it mixes together a lot of the things that make up the basics of a complicated Ggplot. So I want you to replicate this graph. This graph uses the grades table. If you didn't get to this one, let's look at what the grades table looks like. The grades table has 2 columns. The table itself couldn't be simpler. It is a teacher column and a grade. So we have teacher, which is a string. We have 3 teachers in this graph. And we have grade, which is just an integer. So there are a couple hundred rows here. Forget. Oh, I can't do that.
So Spark doesn't like to give you the number of like,
Got it.
yeah.
Raced you to it. 225. Yeah, I had to use, so that was one of the cases where Sparkly R and the tidyverse don't always agree. Or I guess that was base R. So you have to use a Spark distributed function, maybe is what SDF stands for, instead of like regular nrow. So let me look at the head here again so that we can get started. So I want to make definitely some histograms and definitely some density plots. So let's start there. Ggplot grades. Let's start with the histogram. So to make a histogram, you say geom histogram. On the x-axis, I want grade. And because it's like that, I have to put it in an aesthetic. It's part of the data. Everything data related goes in the aesthetic. All right. So here is the histogram of all of the grades all together in my data set. This is very similar to the previous problem. I think the previous problem got you about this far. On an additional thing I wanted to do is I also want to make a geom density on top of the histogram. And this is where things get a little hairy, and that's why I gave you a hint. So I also want grade on the x-axis, but if you just did it here, you can maybe barely see it, but we have like a thin black line kind of underlining our graph here. This is because of a weird thing about density plots. So the y-axis of our graph is count, right? So there are, more than 30 people with a grade in this bin, right? So this is the counts of people with this grade. But the y-axis for a density plot isn't count, it's like density. It's kind of weird. It's because the area under the curve of a density plot has to be 100% to encompass all the data. So our y-axes are on different scales. So I tried to give you a hint that there is actually a way to edit the histogram. If you set the y aesthetic to be this specific line of text here for the histogram, believe this will do it. There. So now we kind of have the density and the histogram on the same kind of scale. I know it's weird. It used to be different. I actually didn't realize this until I was making this session, but the old way of doing it looked like this. But this is deprecated. So it's like this now. Okay, so we've got kind of the basics of this graph for one of the ones we wanted to see. What else do we want here? So I think maybe the next thing to start messing with is, how did I get 3 graphs on top of each other like this? So in Ggplot, they call this a faceted graph. There is a variable that you can split one graph into many graphs. So the faceted variable here is the teacher. So there are 2 ways to facet. This one happens to be a facet, I think, grid. Facet grid will tell, we give it a special R formula that says, what do you want to be the rows of the facet and what do you want to be the columns of the facet? So the rows of this facet is teacher. And then you have to specify that you're not specifying anything for the columns. So teacher, and then you have to say dot. So there are the 3 facets, each of the 3 teachers in my data set. Okay, so this is kind of it. Everything on top of this is just making this graph a little bit prettier. Like, this is the same information as what's up here. So if you were able to get this far, this is like good. It's good for your eyes, but maybe it's not good for a publication. So what other fancy things did I need to do here? Well, I noticed that the color scheme is way off. So see how there's like a white background? And the default in Ggplot is like this gray background with white margin lines. There are a couple built-in themes in Ggplot. So I often like to make this a theme BW for black and white. So just doing that brings us a whole lot closer, right? We've now got this like black and white background. This is much less colorful than my graph. So I can actually change the fill to be also the teacher. And it's of the density, I think I did here. So I can set the fill to be teacher. For a density plot, the fill is actually the color here. And the color is this kind of black border that's around it. So I set the color to be NA to kind of get rid of that black border. Actually, I know we're running out of time. So before I go today, I do want to share the solution key. So I'm going to add you all as viewers of the solution key so that you have this for later. Okay, sorry, back to this. All right, what else do we want to do? So right now you can't see through the density, so this isn't so helpful. So I'm going to set the alpha be a half. Now we can kind of like see the background. And we're like really close now, right? The histogram,
Tim.
I think I made light gray instead of gray.
Sorry, Tim, I think we also need to leave time for the survey.
Yes, I'm making sure to do that.
Okay.
Oop, that's color. The color of a histogram is actually the edge color. So I think this is also fill. There we go. And now we're pretty good. You can see in the solution key that there's a couple of like really like microscopic changes here. I changed the name of the legend to have a capital T for teacher. I made X and Y labels, which we've done a million times already. And I also turned off the Y-axis ticks because the Y-axis of a density plot isn't super meaningful. And then I think that's kind of it. So to reiterate, the easy parts are easy. You just make a histogram and density plot. Faceting is probably a new thing, and as far as I know, something that's kind of unique to Ggplot. Other libraries like Matplotlib make faceting way more difficult. But once you start to get really into the minutia here, things do get really, really complicated, and that's where your friend ChatGPT can help you out a lot if you're allowed to use that on your machine. All right, so thank you all for joining. This is super fun. I love R and I love Ggplot. So I hope my examples kind of showed that how maybe like creative and kind of production-y and publication-y some of the graphs are. Thank you all for joining. I believe somebody is momentarily going to send out a survey. Please, please, please fill this survey out. It's how we know if we're doing a good job or a bad job. It's also how we know what to do next. We love to keep holding these sessions, and as long as we have new topics, we will keep holding these sessions. So this is kind of your opportunity to tell us what you want to talk about next. All right.
I am filling in for Julia, so I'll go ahead and administer that survey now.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep, so just take a moment to fill it out. Once you're done, you can just hit submit and drop from the call. But as Tim mentioned, this survey will help us improve and plan our future sessions. So your feedback is very valuable.
I'm gonna hop to then. Thanks for everything, Laura.
Thank you.